Okay. The sikha we will be learning is in Likud the Sichas Chelik Chavov, the first sikha to Pashas Vayakhel. And there starts with Chilas HaSeder state in the beginning of the Seder of Vayakhel. It says Vayakhel Moshe is called Adas B'nai Yisrael. Moshe gathered the whole community of the Eden V'yemer Aleim, and he said to them, Sheishes Yomim Tiyosem Malacha. 6 days work should be done, and then the pasuk continues, but Shabbos you cannot work. And after that, he goes on to tell the Eden the mitzvah of donating the different things for building of the Mishkan, and goes on with about building of the Mishkan. So, stellt sich Rashi auf die Werte Sheishes Yomim. So Rashi quotes from the pasuk the two words Sheishes Yomim, 6 days, and he's mefarish and explains Higdim lemazhoras Shabbos letzivu imeleches hamishkan, that Moshe Rabbeinu first told them the warning, the prohibition of Shabbos, that you can't work on Shabbos, and he told that to them before he told them the commandment of making the Mishkan. Leib, to tell us that making the Mishkan does not push away Shabbos. That means from here it seems that when there are two things that the Torah tells us, and sometimes they conflict. For instance, like in this case, when Shabbos comes, you have two things now. You're in the middle of the mitzvah of making a Mishkan, if you're in the middle of building the Mishkan, so there's a mitzvah to build a Mishkan. On the other hand, Shabbos you're not allowed to do Melacha, you're not allowed to work. So which one is stronger? Which one pushes away which one? So Rashi says, since the Mishkan, the Shabbos is mentioned before the building of the Mishkan, to show you that the building of the Mishkan does not push away Shabbos. Shabbos pushes away, and therefore Shabbos you cannot build a Mishkan. The Melent Bepashtes is Kavanas Rashi, where you learn simple pshat. Rashi means to say, Ados the Torah is Magdim Asora Shabbos L'Tzivul Lechas HaMishkan. That first the Torah tells us about not doing work on Shabbos. Before it tells us to make the Mishkan, is Abavais as Asora Shabbos is Harbe with the Tzivim Lechas HaMishkan, shows that the keeping of Shabbos is stricter than making the Mishkan. And the Rebbe is Melech Shabbos, Melech HaMishkan, Nidech Shabbos. Therefore, making the Mishkan is not push away Shabbos. And on Shabbos, you can't make the Mishkan because Shabbos is stricter. Where do we see it stricter? From the fact that it's written first. It's kosher wie Meforshim fragen, but it's not understood like Meforshim ask. You find many times in the Torah where you have two commandments, one next to each other. When Rashi is as Mefarish, and Rashi explains it, that whatever is written later pushes away the one that is written before. On dem Dik von demselben Inyan das Kinabei, Shabbos and Melech HaMishkan. Find that same thing in the same Inyan that we're learning. We're learning about Shabbos versus the making of the Mishkan. There itself, in that Inyan, we find opposite. That what's written later is stricter than what's written before. Where is it? In Parshas Sisa. In Posting B'ata Daber, Achash Abseisa the Schapiro. In Parshas Sisa it says, the Eibush said to Moshe, you shall speak to the Eden and tell them about the Mishkan. And then the Posik says, Achash Abseisa the Schapiro, but keep my Shabbos. For the Torah is Magdim, them Tzivui Melechas HaMishkan Farasar Shabbos. The Torah writes first the commandment of making the Mishkan before it tells you is about not working on Shabbos. Says Rashi Mefaris. Rashi says that what does the pasuk mean? What does it mean when it says first the Mishkan and then it says about Shabbos? To teach you. Even though you will be chasing after, you will be very much involved in very strongly in making the Mishkan. Shabbos al titna, don't push away Shabbos. So the fact that Shabbos was written after tells you that even though I command you the Mishkan, you should know that on Shabbos you can't do it. So here is the opposite, that what's written later is stronger. There is a weiter, another case. Later on in Parshas Gedeshim state, it says in Parshas Gedeshim, Ish im evav iftero, and the pasuk says, a man should fear his mother or father, and you should keep Shabbos. So Rashi, the same Rashi, same commentary. Rashi says in his comment, Somach Shmira Shabbos L'meirav, he put keeping Shabbos right next to the fact you have to have kibbud av, which means have fear of your father. Lamer to tell you, even though I commanded you, I warned you to give honor to your father. If he tells you to desecrate the Shabbos, don't listen to him. And where do we see it? From the fact that first it says have kibbud av, then it says but keep Shabbos, to tell you that even though you have a mitzvah of kibbud av, if it means to desecrate the Shabbos, your father tells you the Shabbos, don't listen to him. So there we see in these two places that whatever is written later shows that it is stronger, more strict than the one before. Und da is Rashi mat, and here in our parsha, Rashi stresses der Higdim is Aichocha, Shabbos is Deichem Melechas HaMishkan. The fact that Shabbos was written, Rashi, whatever is written first, shows that Shabbos is Deichem Melechas HaMishkan. Shabbos pushes the Mishkan. And he says that's why Shabbos is written first, because since it's written first, it means it's stricter than what's written later in Melechas HaMishkan, therefore you shouldn't desecrate Shabbos. But there it says the opposite, and here Rashi says that because Shabbos is written before, that shows that it's stricter. And at other places it says, seems that whatever is written later is stricter than the one before. Beforshim and the Beforshim have different answers. The answer like this. Rashi there adds that where do we know that Shabbos is stricter than Melechas HaMishkan, making the Mishkan? We learn it out from the word ach. Ach means but. The pasuk, as we read before, says va'at o tedaber. Tell them about the Mishkan. Ach, but keep Shabbos. And the rule is called achin v'rakim miyutin, that wherever it says the word ach in the Torah, but rak also but, it's mamayet, that excludes lamayet Shabbos and Melechas HaMishkan. So when it says about Shabbos, it mentions the word ach to be mamayet, to exclude Shabbos from making the Mishkan. That Shabbos you can't do the Mishkan. So we see that really we don't know it over there by Parsha Kesisa, that Shabbos is stricter from the fact that Shabbos is written later, but from a different reason, because the word ach, when the Gei Shabbos it says ach, that teaches you that you can't do the Melacha of Mishkan on Shabbos. Al deras and Parsha Kedeshim, the same thing we find in Kedeshim, but it's not because the Pasuk writes about keeping Shabbos after Kibud Aveim, for a different reason. Rashi Mamshich in the deeper Shalachas, and Rashi says over there in the next piece of Rashi that quoted, Rashi says the Pasuk adds, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, you should listen, fear your parent, your father and mother, you should keep Shabbos, I am Hashem your God. So Rashi says that this is a reason why if your father tells you to desecrate Shabbos, you don't listen to him. Because you and your father are obligated to listen to me in my honor. Therefore, don't listen to your father to nullify what I said. So if he tells you to Mechal Shabbos, don't do it. That means, as in die beide Fallen, seems like in both of these cases, Musman onkommen zu die Werte Achon an Hashem Elokeichem zu bewahrenen, a Shabbat wird nicht niche vom Melechas HaMishkan meirav. That here we see that what tells us in Parsha Kesisa that Shabbos is deicha pushes away Mishkan, not because it's written later, it's because there's a pasuk. What makes us say that Shabbos pushes away Kibbud Av? Not because it's written after Kibbud Av. It's because there's a special pasuk, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, which tells you, I am Hashem your God. So if it tells you to do something against me, you don't listen. So that's what they answer. And therefore, we can't bring a kasha from these two places. That over there, it seems like Rashi learns that whatever is later is stricter, and Bayasi says whatever is earlier is stricter, because there it's not because it's later it's stricter, for a different reason. But the Rebbe says, in der Fun Gufa Verstandi, from that we understand as Adarabe. From that we see that on the contrary, Bechlal is the Mugdem Deicha de Mocher. Usually whatever is written first is stronger and pushes away whatever is written later. That's why we would have thought, let's say by the Kibbud Av, because it says first Kibbud Av, and then it says keep Shabbos, we would think that Kibbud Av overrides Shabbos. Und der Rebbe, and therefore, Lulei di Psukim, Achbar Melechas HaMishkan, the Pasha Sison, and Ani Hashem Elokeichem meirav. And we see, that's why if not for the special posig of Ach in Kisiso, and the special union of Ani Hashem Elokeichem, posig Ani Hashem Elokeichem, in Pasha Kedeshim, if not for that, Volt man Take gesagt, we would have said, as weil die Zivuyim of Melechas HaMishkan, and meirav stehen frie, Faras or Shabbos, and Zedech Shabbos, because the commandment from Melechas HaMishkan and the commandment of having fear of your parents, of your father, because they're written before Shabbos, I would think that they are stronger than Shabbos. For there's the other, but there is a raya that whatever is written before is stronger. That's why the only way we know over there that it's not stronger is because of a special raya, because it says ach, or because it says Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So the Chura, this answer, the kasha was by us, Rashi says that whatever is written earlier means it's stronger. Over the other place, it seems like whatever is written later is stronger. So no, but there is not really whatever is written earlier is stronger. And that's why by Yasif Pasha Vayakhel, it says first about Shabbos, then it says about the Mishkan to tell you that Shabbos is stronger. And Shabbos pushes away making the Mishkan. The reason over there we know that it's not like that is for different reasons, because it says Ach or it says Ani Hashem Elokeichem. But the Rebbe says, but in Derech HaPshat is there being mitmas. This explanation is not enough in the derech pshat, the simple pshat, the way Rashi writes his commentary. But we could ask a kasha on that itself. Why did the Torah first write about the Mishkan in Kisisa, then write about Shabbos, and the same thing, first write about Meir Av of Kibbutz Av, and then write about Shabbos? And now that it's written that way, we will think that Kibbutz Av is stronger. Melechas HaMishkan is stronger than Shabbos. And that's the reason, in order not to make that mistake, the Torah had to add the word ach in Kisiso and had to add Ani Hashem Lekech in Parshas Kedeshim. So if really the rule is that whatever is written first is stronger, so over there we would think that Kibbutz Av is stronger, or from here we would think that Mishkan is strong. That's why the Torah had to do something, change it. The question is, Torah could have made it much easier. If the rule is really that whatever is written first is stronger, so the Torah in Kisisa could have said first Shabbos and then Melechas HaMishkan. In Kadesh, the Pasuk could have first said Shabbos and then Meirav. So from the fact that that's first, we would we would know Shabbos is Deichem Melechas HaMishkan and Meirav. The Shabbos pushes away the Mishkan and Meirav. If we're saying that the truth is that whatever is first is stronger, so the Torah could have made it much easier. Other two places they could have written Shabbos first, and then we would know that Shabbos is stronger. Why did the Torah write the opposite? So we might think that the other mitzvah, the Mishkan or the Kibbutz Av, is stronger. The Torah had to make sure that we don't make that mistake. The Torah could have written first the mitzvah of Shabbos, and that's always stronger, and then write the Mishkan. So we would know by Shabbos you can't do the Mishkan, or the Shabbos and then Kibbutz Av, and we would know that even for Kibbutz Av we can't Mechal Shabbos. In the full mashma, so that shows as from Gdima Alein Kemen Toplen and the rest of Tzivu is Deichem Tzveiten. It shows that it's not what we think. It's not that Rashi learns that whatever is written first, that shows that that's stronger than the second, that's stricter than the second. Now, we have to have a special limud, a special way that Torah teaches us. So that's why over there, by the Parsha Kisisa and the Parsha Kedeshim, the Torah had to write. The fact that the Torah says at first, that's not a reason to think that the first thing that Kibbutz Av or Melechas HaMishkan is stronger, and that's what the Torah said change. No, the Chetchila it's not from that. And the Torah had to have a limud, a miyut, to tell us clearly. So it seems like from the fact that something is first is no raya. So the question is, here Rasha says, why did Shabbos come before Melechas HaMishkan? To teach you that it's not Deicha Shabbos, doesn't push away Shabbos. So it seems like that, what teaches you that? How do we know Shabbos is stronger? From the fact that the Torah writes Shabbos first. But we just finished saying that from the fact that the Torah writes something first doesn't mean anything. Because if that would mean, that would be the rule, then in Kisisa and the Parsha Kedeshim, the Torah will write Shabbos first and then the other mitzvah, then the Mishkan, then Kibbutz Av, and we wouldn't need any more. And the Rebbe continues, we find at length in the commentaries on Rashi that answer this kasha with all kinds of different, showing different answers and different changes and divisions. So, and they give different answers. When do we learn out that if something is written first, that means that that's stronger, pushes away the other one, and when not, so to speak. So they give all kinds of answers. So there are answers in Meforshim. In other words, what's the Rebbe doing? He's asking a kasha, the Meforshim, and they give all kinds of answers. But the Rebbe says, we spoke many times, Rasha, geschrieben sein Pirish ala Teire, in Asignen, as Eich Aben, Chomesh, Lemikers, or Kenne Verstehen, Kavanas Rashi. Rashi wrote it, his commentary, and it's written for anybody who starts learning Chumash, even if you're 5 years old, doesn't understand all these complicated things. Rashi wrote it in such a way that even a child like that should understand what Rashi means for seine gezählte Werte. Just by what Rashi writes, the few words that Rashi writes is enough for a smart child, even a child, if he's smart and reads it properly, will understand. Need darfen die kanisofes biras, and not that you need other things. The other Meforshim give all kinds of explanations, side explanations. Can be that. Certainly in this case, as a grace shaklavatari Meforsh Rashi mit verschiedener Leitrutzim. Here, anytime there's a teretz that's a little complicated, you can't say that's what Rashi meant. Rashi wrote it in such a way that whatever he wrote, it's simple to understand, and you have to figure out from the simple words. Here, certainly, because here there are many answers. So you can't say that Rashi means, at least in Pshat, the Alo Rebbe, but he means all these answers. There are so many explanations. So Rashi wrote it in a way, and we don't know what he means, and he means all the answers. And he doesn't say which one he means. There's so many ways to answer. From Rashi, you can't know. And the Rebbe says in order 16 that other Mefarshim to give the answers. So he says, I said many times that the Mefarshim Rashi explain Rashi, not dafkim derech hapshat. They explain Rashi, the halacha of Rashi. So there you could say all kinds of reasons. It's not for little kids, but that's not what Rashi is. And in order 17, the Rebbe says that because in the Sikha said, the Rebbe said that you can't know all these different terutzim, or you don't know which one he wants or not. So that's hard to say these terutzim. Besides that, he says, many of these terutzim doesn't fit the Rashi's words. Many of the terutzim are not hinted. What they explain is not written in Rashi and not even hinted in Rashi. And if Rashi would mean any of these terutzim, the Rebbe says, he should have at least written something to hint at these truths. None of them are hinted. So it must be a different thing. We makes sense to say, by learning just the words of Rashi, he's out moving the words, but everything is understood and explained. But in a way that all the questions that we asked fall off, just looking into the words of Rashi. I could say the answer simply. Okay, the Rebbe explains like this. In Parsha Kesisa, where Rasha writes these words, as we said before, that the Posik first warns about Shabbos, tells us about keeping Shabbos, and then about the Mishkan, to teach you that the Mishkan doesn't push away Shabbos. Is Rasha nicht wissen zu sagen, was von dem, was the Teire is, the Teire domagt dem Masara Shabbos fadem sieben lechas Mishkan, lenten up dem din. It doesn't mean that we learn this din, that Shabbos pushes away the making the Mishkan, strictly the making the Mishkan. Rasha doesn't mean that Torah writes it from the fact that Torah wrote it first. From there we learn that out. As Malachas HaMishkan is Nidei Shabbos. From there we learn Malachas HaMishkan Nidei Shabbos. That's not. Before the Rebbe proved that that's not. But here's going to explain why. That the Rebbe proved that it's not writing something first is the araya that it's stricter than the second one. And the Rebbe quoted, because if that would be true, then by the other two places that shouldn't be written that way. Is that ayah that's not it. From being written first, there's no ayah that's stricter. And the Rebbe even explains it. From der din atzmi schon gesagt worden früher. In our case, Vayakhel, it's repeated. This din itself was written already in Parsha Sisa. Where it says, when Hashem commanded Moshe, it says, Ach Hashem seisa tishmeru. You should keep Shabbos. But you should keep Shabbos. And the Rashi is dort mefarish knarsiv days, like we brought earlier. Rashi on that posuk explains that what it means is the word ach means lamayet Shabbos v'melechas hamishkan, to exclude Shabbos from making the Mishkan. Shabbos you can make. So it's not that we have to learn it from here. We know already from before that Shabbos you can build a Mishkan. So you could ask, but that's only the way Hashem spoke to Moshe. Our parsha is talking about Moshe set in Eden. Once he's moving, what we understand, Me'ela by itself. Aventere that sailed in Rova Parsha saying the Moshe Tiberigem din ditzavuyim of Shabbos and Melechas HaMishkan. Now when the Torah in our Parsha tells us that Moshe told over to the Eden those commandments of the Shabbos and the Mishkan, it was given genoi ki omer lu Parsha Sisa. For sure, Moshe told over whatever David told him. And as had gesagt, Eden, so obviously he told the Eden, Melechas HaMishkan is Nidei Shabbos. He told him outright, just like over there. When he said, he told Moshe Shabbos doesn't pushes away the Mishkan, that you cannot work on the Mishkan on Shabbos. For sure, Moshe told it to the Eden. So why do we need it from here to say that? How do we know it? Because the Torah said first Shabbos and then first Mishkan and first Shabbos and then Mishkan. Higdil on Shabbos, first Shabbos and then Mishkan. And from here we learn it out that Shabbos is Doicha the Mishkan. We can't say that. That from here we learn how the Shabbos pushes away the Mishkan. For sure, Moshe told him. David told it to Moshe then with the word ach. So he told him. Moshe Rabbeinu definitely repeated whatever David said. So we don't need the fact that it comes first to teach us that Shabbos is stronger. Nor the diugdo is higdim lahem asaras Shabbos. Rashi means to say here that to the Yidden, Moshe Rabbeinu first said Shabbos. We're not talking what the Torah writes as a command, what the Hashem commanded. It's what he's telling Abish told Moshe what you should tell them. That's what it is. Rashi uses the word higdim lohem. Moshe, the Abish told Moshe, tell them first Shabbos. So it's not because to know that Shabbos is stronger than Mishkan. Tell them again. We'll see what the Rebbe explains. He said to them, he told them first to stress this word. Means like this. Rasha has a question. The Baal doesn't since when Hashem spoke to Moshe, he said, so the Melechas HaMishkan came before Shabbos. That's what it says there. First said Mishkan, then he says Acha Shabseis Tishmeira. If the Eibush that told Moshe first the Mishkan, and then Shabbos, was that Moshe Rabbeinu Mashane given? Why did Moshe change? And by Miber geben die Tzevuim zu den Eden, higdim lohem azar Shabbos. Why, when he told it over to the Eden, he said to them first about Shabbos? Why did Moshe change? The Eibush told Moshe both, and he told him that Shabbos is not deicha Mishkan. Mishkan is not deicha Shabbos. Shabbos is deicha Mishkan. So we know already. But the Rashi has a kasha. Why did Moshe not say it in the same Seder at Eden? So the kasha is, why did he change? That's why the Rashi used the lo higdim lahem. To them it was first. If them enter the Rashi answers to teach us, but not to teach us the din. The din, they said, we know from there. To tell us, you remember, Shabbos, Mishkan is not deicha Shabbos, which means like this. Bald as Moshe had zegedarft übergeben. As Melechas HaMishkan is in deicha Shabbos, says David told Moshe. And Moshe had to tell the Eden that Mishkan is not deicha Shabbos. Wie man that the song gesagt, the Pasha Kesisa, and said the Pasha Kesisa, hat the far magding given Asar Shabbos. That's why he came Shabbos to them, for not to teach us the din. He definitely told them the din. But he did something to make an extra point. He explains like this. The says it means, Neisef Lezevas, Moshe Rabbeinu ongesagt the Eden b'mefurish as Melechas HaMishkan is deicha Shabbos. Besides the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu outright clearly told them that Melechas HaMishkan is not deicha Shabbos. Shabbos, you can't do the Mishkan. Is Beisofel, in addition to what we understand, Moshe told him, because if David told him to say it, he probably said it, even though it's not written. And we have a rule, not always is it written that Abisha told him, that he said it. Sometimes the Torah writes what Abisha said to him, to tell the Eden, and then doesn't mention it again, because we understand he said. Here also we understand he told him. But in addition to that, so he did something to verstarken bei Eden dem Chema von Asar Shabbos, to strengthen, not only to tell him the din, to make it that they should really realize how strict Shabbos is, but that Eich Magdim given them Tzivei HaShabbos LaTzivei HaMelechas HaMishkan. So here, he first mentioned the union of Shabbos before Mishkan, to tell him, and as the Rebbe will say at the end, he said it to them first, and means keep that in mind. In other words, that knew the din, but he wanted them to every second keep that, came first. In other words, whatever comes first, that stays in your head. The Rebbe will say at the end of the Sikha. So he wanted them to keep in their mind always, not to know the din. The din he told them, but he was magdim at first. That's the first thing, keep in mind. That's what he said. That Shabbos comes before Melechas HaMishkan. And here when Rasha says, Higdim lem leimer, as we said before, doesn't mean to teach you, as we said before, because that, he told him obviously. That's what Rasha doesn't write. The Rebbe in Order 20 says, Lelamdoch, doesn't say lamdoch. Leimer, he said, leimer means to say to the Yidden. So he told him, say it, he was magdim to say to the Yidden, not to say, leimer, normally we think he's magdim to teach us. Lelamdoch means to teach us, not to teach us. Leimer means he did it to tell the Eden. He wanted to make an extra stress on telling the Eden, so he gave them first. So automatically, the whole discussion we had in Rashi. How this Rashi fits to the Parsha and Kesis Kadeshim, as we said before. Because we asked here, the Rashi says, since it says first, that means stronger. Those places that seems whatever is later is stronger. That's no kasha anymore. We don't, in our Parsha, we're not talking about how we know that Melechas HaMishkan doesn't push away Shabbos. And it's not because he said it first, that's how we know it. That's not the pshat. You could say even more. We can't learn now from the fact that it's written first, You cannot learn out as their mukdim is machriya and is deicha the muche. That whatever is first is stronger and pushes away the later one. That's not what Rashi means. Rashi never said it. And taka, maybe you can't learn out like that. And Rashi never meant it. All Rashi meant was that Moshe Rabbeinu, why did he change the Seder of what Eibush told him? Eibush told him first about Mishkan and then about Shabbos, with the word ach to teach you that, not from the Seder, but to teach you that Shabbos is Deicha Mishkan. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu change the order? So that's what Higdim Lahem, to make an extra point. They should always have that in mind. Es bleibt aber nicht moving, der Rebbe says, still not understood. Bald, aber man sagen, die Zivuyim zu Moshe. Hat der Rebbe schon nicht magim, and Asara Shabbat Zivuyim Lechas HaMishkan. Since when the Rebbe spoke to Moshe, he did not bring Shabbos before the Zivuyim Lechas HaMishkan, we said that Moshe did it to stress it. Why didn't the Rebbe to stress it? Why didn't the Rebbe to stress it also? The same way we're saying Moshe was magdim to stress it, that's why he changed. So why didn't the Rebbe to do the same thing? Why did he change? So we see that why didn't Eibush change? Because the fact that there is ach is enough. It says ach is enough that the Yidden should know about the Shabbos pushes away Mishkan, and that's all. It's enough. The Eibush didn't add to make another point, making by saying Shabbos first. So was that Moshe Rabbeinu gedacht zugeben, durch Magna and Shabbos? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to add that? Und der mit Meshane seinem Seder hat Zivuyim, wie sie seine gesagt geworden, al der HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And by doing that, changing the Lashon, the Seder, the way the Eibishter commanded him. So we said before, because Moshe wanted to make extra stress. So why didn't the Eibishter do that? Elamai, the Eibishter felt you don't need an extra stress. The Yidden will know it themselves strongly. So why did Moshe feel differently? But in the Verstehen, the Rebbe will understand this. First, let's learn the Rashi. Pasha Kisisa, what Rasha said. Rasha says there, and the words where the Pasuk says, the Eibush said to Moshe, you speak to the Yidden saying, but you shall keep my Shabbos. So Rasha stellt sich in Neshten die Bramaskal, die Werte, Be'ata daber ibn Yisrael, on the first part of Rasha. Rasha quotes the word from the Pasuk, Ve'ato tedaber ibn Yisrael, you speak to the Yidden, and he's mafarik, just what Rasha says. Ve'ato, since the Pasuk says you, means to tell you, even though I commanded you to tell them, to command them to make the Mishkan, it should not be light in your eyes to push away Shabbos. So that's what Rashi says. That Rashi says from the word Va'ato, we see that this words that the Eibishter told him that even though I commanded you to make the Mishkan, but don't make light of Shabbos because of this Malacha. That's one Rashi. Weiter is Rashi Mefaret. Then Rashi says again another thing. Quotes the words but you shall keep my Shabbos. Rashi says like this: even though you'll be chasing them, you'll be very careful and you'll be very excited in the Malacha making the Mishkan. Shabbos al titem chanel, but don't push Shabbos away. And Rashi continues because it says ach and kol achim etc. Every time it says ach, it means to exclude. So he's trying to exclude, like even though you'll be so busy with making the Mishkan, don't forget about Shabbos. Don't push Shabbos away because of that. That's the Rashi. Okay. From Pashtus Lashon Rashi, from the way Rashi writes it, his Mucha is clear as the Zayda Tzvei Bezunder Asoris. It's two separate commandments. As Melechas HaMishkan soll nicht sein Shabbos. That Mishkan should not push away Shabbos. Because what is Rashi saying in both Rashis? The exact same thing. First, he says that even though I commanded you to tell them about the Mishkan, but Shabbos should not be light. Don't be Mechala Shabbos. Then the second Rashi says, even though they'll be so involved in the Mishkan, they'll be so excited about the Mishkan, don't push Shabbos away. So it comes out twice, he says it. So it's same thing, but he says twice, two separate things. The one is because of the word Va'ato, which seems to be extra. So from Va'ato, he says, you make sure to tell them about, even though you're telling about the Mishkan, you make sure to tell them about Shabbos. And the second one from the Miyut Ach, because it says Ach, it comes to exclude. Is not moving, it's not understood. Number one, we Meforshim fragen, we Meforshim ask, why did they have to tell it twice? It's the same thing seemingly. Second thing, he learned man up from word Va'ato, from the word Va'ato, as al Yekel Vayakhel litchas Shabbos b'neisem Malacha. Rashi says the word Va'ato, you. So from that we know that Shabbos should not be easy in your eyes. How does the word Vata mean that? Vata means you. How does that mean? Darf man verstehen, der Alichas Loschen für Rashi in die zwei Perushim. Und die Shinui inzwischen sagt. This is simple kashas. Then Rashi goes in at length, says quite a few words, and different words in both places. Number one, the even though I commanded you to tell them to make the Mishkan, that's what Rashi says. Even though I command you, ganz Teire Mitzvah Zibber geworden zu Jeden durch Moshe Rabbeinu. The whole Teire and every Mitzvah was set through Moshe. So he said, even though I commanded, as if there's something special here, he commanded him, Mitzvah, commanded him to make the Mishkan. Even though I commanded you to make the Mishkan, nevertheless, Shabbos not. What's that meaning? And second thing, the Lashon is, even though I commanded you to tell them about the Mishkan, Al Yekal Beinecha Litches. Don't let Shabbos not be light in your eyes. Why does Rashi say such a roundabout words? Rashi sagt nicht bekitzer, should let simple. Al Titche, even though you commanded for the Mishkan, don't push away Shabbos or something similar. Vilasha lei atzmei take if not them. Vilosha Rashi atzmei take if not them. Like in the second one, what does Rashi say? And even though the Yidden will be running after and be excited about the Mishkan, Shabbos al Titche, don't Shabbos should not be pushed away. So why, when he says the first one, he says that not he says don't push away Shabbos. Al Yeka Benecha. It shouldn't be light in your eyes. And another thing, the third thing, in the zweiten Dibur bringt Rashi Anaya Minyan. The second thing, something new. Even though you'll be chasing and you'll be so excited and involved in the Malacha. But don't forget, Shabbos you can't push away. Where does Rashi take this idea that David is telling you because they'll be involved? Why is he write it? And if he does, Rashi does write it, why only in the second part, not the first? They're saying the same thing, so why didn't they write in the first? Rabbi says here, made a shot. There are two separate things that Rashi is saying. The difference is like this. In the Mershon Dibur, where Rashi tells the Werte V'ata Daber Bnei Yisrael, the first one where Rashi quotes from the Pasuk, and he's explaining the words Va'ata Daber Bnei Yisrael, Retzich Klaber Moshe Atzmei. That's since he's saying Va'ato, he's talking about Moshe. You, he's telling you, I'm talking to you. I commanded you to tell the Yidden. So he's talking towards Moshe. Rashi is madgish, but Rashi says in his words, Afa pi shehifkadeticho, even though I commanded you litzaveisom, to command them, al yekel beinecho, it shouldn't be light in your eyes. So we're talking about Eibush is saying something to Moshe himself. But the second one where it says they shall keep, meaning you shall keep, meaning all the Yidden, that's a b'shaychet to Bnei Yisrael. That's a b'negeya, the way he's talking to the Yidden. It says, even though they will be, you plural, not shetiyev, you. So first part is talking about to Moshe, something about Moshe. Second one is talking about Bnei Yisrael. When das Guf is a time for what's his identity by the limudim. That's why we need, because we're talking to Moshe and talking to the Yidden, we need two separate limudim to teach us this. It says, "Nit deime wie mavon Moshe Rabbeinu Shabbos wird in ditchem mipnei melechas hamishkan, und wie das wird mavon b'nei Yidden." When we make sure that they don't push away Shabbos because of the Mishkan, is not the same when we're talking about Moshe or when we're telling this to the Yidden. Rashi is as matkish do the Shina Lashenis in the Tzvei Diburim. Like if you look into the words that we mentioned before, you'll see there's a big difference. What's the difference? The Asbar in them, the explanation is like this. The Tzivay of Melechas HaMishkan is Gikumen with Pirish Shasi. The commandment to make the Mishkan came, as Rashi says, in Parsha Kisisa, and Rashi, the Rebbe brings the order 27 different places. It came, nor the Slicha for Chet Egel. Came after David forgave the Chet Egel. He didn't sin with the Egel. After he forgave them, he told them to show that he forgave, make a Mishkan. While the Mishkan is Rashi is Mefarish, the Mishkan is like Rashi says, Eidus Yisrael shel vitel HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma'aseh Egel. That's a testimony to the Eden that David forgave them and the Egel. How is a testimony? Sharei hishlish chenas of Israel, because Bneiim. Because David arrested his Shechina. Because when the Chet Egel, David was upset with them, he removed himself from them. And now make a Mishkan, he said, I'll rest amongst you. That showed the Eden that David forgave them. So that was what it was. And the truth is, even though Rashi says this, Loshen, we said, in Parsha Pekudah. We know Rashi doesn't rely on something of later, but the Rebbe says in Order 28, in Parsha Shminin, at Rashi earlier also says something like that. Rashi says, Nisratza amokim liYisrael lisleach lem nitztava lamishkan. The Eibishter agreed to forgive them, and he told them to make the Mishkan. We see the Mishkan is connected to the forgiveness for the Chet. Und da sagt Rashi, in zweiten Dibur, that's what Rashi means in the second Rashi that we spoke about now, where he's talking about the Yidden. Rashi uses the Lashon, Afa pisha tiyu redufim mizrizim b'mleches mizrizis hamlocha, even though you'll be chasing after and you'll be so excited and involved in the specialty of the Melachas HaMishkan, Shabbos al titr mechaneh, don't push Shabbos away. So Rashi uses the Lashon, you'll be so involved in Mishkan. We ask the Kasha, what does Rashi mean with it? Why does he say it? The chashash was matar bavorin and b'nei Yisrael is what we have to make sure by Yidden b'negei Shabbos, they shouldn't desecrate the Shabbos by making the Mishkan, is not as they will on them and the Melechas HaMishkan v'aktibit in Teich Shabbos, not because we're afraid the thing that making the Mishkan is stricter than Shabbos, more important than Shabbos. That's not what we're afraid of. For the Bepashtes, simply, we're not afraid of that at all. Yidden will medas atzman nit paskinen at Melechas HaShabbos Melechas Mishkan Teich Shabbos. Yidden will not on their own decide that Mishkan is stronger than Shabbos. So if they wouldn't know what the din is, they would trick the exclamation. So we're not even afraid that the Eden will do Melechas HaMishkan HaShabbos, that the Torah has to make sure. But the Torah has to make sure is, nor this Nigat Ashros Ashkini Mishkan is the Bavais of Kaporas Chet HaEgels, knowing, the Eden knowing that making the Mishkan is a proof that the Eibusha forgave him for the Egel, so then they might be, not only might, they should run after making the Mishkan. Yogen sich, to chase and run with Gor Grace Zrizes, with very strong Zrizes, to run with the Keach, so far ending in the Melechas HaMishkan. They should do as constantly run to finish the Mishkan. Kadei the Kaporas will come and Vosfrier, so the Kaporas should come before. So they will definitely be involved. And we see the Taka were involved, they want to do fast. In Order 29, the Rebbe says when it came to giving the donations for the Mishkan, it says, Marbi Mahom, Lahavi Vehese. They brought so much, it was even extra. Why did they bring so much? Because they wanted to make sure you have that you could go ahead and you shouldn't have to wait. We're stuck, we don't have enough money to Mishkan. So we see that the Yidden, when they heard that it's connected to Chet HaEgel, this is the forgiveness, they definitely would run and get so involved. When the Ribit is all, when you're so involved in something, it's possible, at the Isaskas, Be'efen for the Dife, it's possible, not that you'll think that you're allowed to. If you're so involved, you might become nichshel, you'll stumble, you'll forget, you'll make a mistake. You'll be so involved, and you'll be completely involved, you might forget about Shabbos. So that's why we have to make sure to tell the Eden, even though you will be running after, you will be heavily involved, you'll be 100% involved. Remember, Shabbos al titchem epanea. Don't push away Shabbos. And the Rebbe in Order 30 says that this also answers a kasha that Meforshim asked. That Rashi says we have to tell you that Shabbos you can't build a Mishkan. Why would we think so? We have a rule that said when there's a positive mitzvah, pushes away a negative. Here, making the Mishkan is a positive mitzvah. Not to desecrate Shabbos is a leisase. But the din is if there's a leisase together with an esse, in Shabbos there's two. There's a esse positive commandment, keep Shabbos, and a negative not to do any melacha. So a positive mitzvah does not, which is a mitzvah esse, does not push away another mitzvah, which is a esse and a leisase. So here, why would they even have a havamina? The Meforshim ask that Mishkan pushes away Shabbos. Well, Mishkan is only a esse, and Shabbos is a esse and a leisase. But according to what the Rebbe says here, it's simple. He didn't. Rashi not saying that, telling them they should not make that mistake and think that Mishkan pushes away Shabbos. They shouldn't forget. They shouldn't not realizing because they're so involved. That's what we're afraid. That's what it means. Those is over place when they get Eden. That problem was only talking to the Eden. Moshe himself, Moshe had nothing to do with the Egel. Even after the Egel, they were like in Chedem, they were excommunicated Eden, away from the Eibishter. So they were separated, removed Kiviyochel from the Eibishter. Is all Moshe given in Eil Meid, Mokim Shchina. Is given an Eil Meid. Moshe Rabbeinu's tent became the place for the Shchina. So Moshe Rabbeinu never had the problem. He didn't have the problem. They made a Chet HaEgel, so they separated from Hashem. So they're looking for ways to fast to do it. So we're afraid they forget about Shabbos. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have to worry about that because he didn't have the Chet Egel, so he had no separation from Hashem. Not only that, his tent became the tent of Hashem. He's moving, so we understand that's Klapa Moshe Atzman. You give Shaykh the Chash mitzad redu from his reason. Mitzad Moshe, there is no suspicion that maybe he'll be so chasing after it, so excited about it that he might forget about Shabbos or fall into Shabbos. The fact that the Rasha is mfarish, especially another nekudah. Rasha says, "Le'oso Moshe shu malacha b'mishkan." Moshe did not do any malacha in the Mishkan. Moshe did not participate in anything of making the Mishkan. In order for 34, the Rebbe says the only thing that he did was put up the Mishkan. Maybe she told him to do it, but in making the Mishkan, he wasn't involved. So, and the Rebbe even now in the brackets is going to say, and based on this fact, another thing that he said, I explained once at length, that the Rebbe explained in Parshas, our Parsha means Parsha Vayakhel, when it talks about the commandment to make the Mishkan, the Pasuk says, Vayemer Moshe said, Zeh hadover asher tziva Hashem leimer. He told the Eden, this is what Hashem commanded to say. So Rasha says, a strange Rasha. Zeh hadover asher tziva Hashem li leimer lachem. This is what Hashem, Rasha, as we're told me to tell you. Well, what do we think? Told it to somebody else. What is Rasha adding? This is what Hashem told me to tell you. So the Rebbe explains this commandment about making the Mishkan. He told it to me, but not because it's negayah to me. He told it to me just to tell you. Aber Moshe allein of them nicht given it to the Moshe was not commanded to make the Mishkan. And the reason is because he had the Shechina. The Mishkan was the big Shechina. He didn't have to do that because he had the Shechina with him. So b'meila, for Moshe, we don't have to worry that he might get so involved in Melechas HaMishkan because it brings a kapora to the Chegel, and who knows, he might forget about Shabbos. Moshe don't have to. First of all, he didn't have the Chet Egel, and second of all, he had the Shechina the whole time. So what, by Moshe, nor what's dar from Avor in the Moshe Va'ata, what is it that we have to tell you, Moshe? A different word, Rashi says. Even though I commanded you to tell them about the Mishkan, in your eyes it should be light. That's a different thing. By the Eden, we're telling you might forget about Shabbos because you'd be so involved. Moshe won't be involved in the Mishkan. So him you have to say something else. And Rashi Taka says these words, Va'ato. The question was, what does Va'ata teach you? How does Va'ata teach you that you shouldn't be Teicha Shabbos? He says, Ata means you. I commanded you to tell them. Because of that, what I'm afraid is, by you, it might be light in your eyes. What does that mean? So the Rebbe explains, as I will explain now. Rashi brings the Rebbe Sof Pashik Siso. Rashi brings in Sof Pashik Siso. Then Seder Mishnah v'Mesha Gelern Teira mit Eden. The Seder of how Moshe taught the Teira to the Eden. First thing, when Moshe came down and he had a halacha to teach, he taught Aaron. Aaron walked out, and then afterwards, Nichnas Abonov, Aaron walked out, his children went in. Shonalem, Moshe taught his children. Nichna, and then they walked out. Nichnas Skainim, Shonalem. Then the Skainim, the elders went in. Moshe taught. Then they went out, and Nichnas Kolaom, Shonalem. Moshe taught them all the Nimtza b'yad Kolaom, Echad b'Skainim. So it comes like this: that the Skainim only heard it once. Beis b'yad Bnei, and the children of Aaron heard it twice. And Shleisha b'yad Aaron, 3 times the hands of Aaron. And Arbob was by Moshe. Like it says in native, because Aaron heard it from Moshe. That's once. Then what happened? Moshe taught the children. Aaron was there. So when I said before that they walked out, take it back. Didn't walk out. They came in. I'm sorry. Yes. Moshe taught Aaron. Then after he finished, the children came in. Then when he finished with the children, the Scanan came in, and then all the Eden. So Moshe. So it comes out from here. That's what it says. Yeah, everyone had once. They heard it the 4th time Moshe said it, and the Scanim had twice because they heard it when Moshe taught them, and the Eden they still stayed there. Not like I said before. And Bnei Aaron at 3 and Aaron at 4. Moshe himself had it from David. Well, I had a slip of my tongue, what I said before. But what I said now. The time for Rashi is Moshe v'chulu kadisa beirim. Why is Rashi add? He tells this and then he says, etc., like it says in native. You could say as it is the mitmerames of the Hemshech HaGemara. He hints that we have to see where the Gemara finishes off. I know the Moshe for ending Zayin firmal lernen after Moshe finished the teaching 4 times, he showed the now Aaron repeated it again. And then after Aaron repeated it to everybody, Shonalam Bonaf Pirka, his children repeated it again. Shonalam Skanim Pirka, then the Skanim repeated it again. So Rashi means to tell you that they heard it again. So each one heard it from Moshe, they heard once, all the Eden, and then they heard from others, etc. This was a Seder. And the Rebbe said, by the way, but the Mitba warned Rashi Shai by Rashi bringing the end of it, hinting to the end of Edom, Rashi answers a very simple kasha. Wie kommt es sagen, Soldaten Herren 4-mal, und verbonnen wie genug 3-mal, for the Skanim 2, for Kolam Brei 1-mal. Comes out, if you don't bring the end of the Masechta Edom, it comes out that Aaron heard it 4 times, his children heard it 3 times, his Skanim twice, and all the Yidden once. See, the Chibchem should be the opposite. The Yidden are a lesser level. They have to hear it more times. Aaron is the highest level. He doesn't have to hear it so many times. So why is it that Aaron heard it 4 times, the children heard it 3 times, the Skanim 3 times, and 2 times, and everyone else heard it once only? But by quoting the end of the Gemara, it's answered. The Gemara says that then Aaron came in and taught everybody, and then came the Bnei Aaron taught everybody, and the Skanim. So the end was they all had 4 times. But the bottom line is, this is the Seder that Rashi brings, how Moshe taught the Torah. Okay. Abizekum Tuis comes out as andere Tzivuya Torah meeting heard nor formation. Not nor formation. The other Tzivuyim, other commands that the Eden heard it, we say, heard it again. Everyone heard it 4 times. And they heard it not only from Moshe. Moshe said it once to them, but then they heard it again from others. So everybody heard the Torah from Moshe and from the rest. By Melechus HaMishkan, they said, the Eibusha said, I commanded you to tell them. In other words, here Moshe had to make sure that they know the halachas. Das Übergeben zu Eden, dem Zivur Melechus HaMishkan, is not late given like in Seder Mishnah. So when Moshe gave over, the Zivur Melechus HaMishkan was not the same order like every other mitzvah. Nor how did that happen? Like it says in the beginning of Pasha Vayakhel. Vayakhel Moshe's call adas b'nei Yisrael v'yemel Moshe Rabbeinu came and he told him. So we know that Moshe Rabbeinu himself called all the Eden and told him. Moshe had geretzu alle Eden b'shavim. Moshe spoke to everyone equal. On chilukin zwischen Aaron, Bona, Vaskenim, and Kolam. It wasn't difference between Aaron and his children and the Skenim. No, but the whole Seder that was by all the other mitzvahs that were told to the Eden, here was different. Here, everything came from Moshe himself. Und da sagt Rashi, if Ata tataber ab This is what Rashi means. The Pasuk says, you shall speak to the Eden. So Rashi says, Va'ata means, even though I commanded you to tell them about the Mishkan, al yekal b'necha, in your eyes it should not be light. Meaning, since by Moshe, he saw that the tzivah, the commandment for the Mishkan, is in a special way, in a way from you commanded me to tell them completely, everything should come from me. That's what Moshe said. Anders for under it's different than all the other mitzvahs of the Torah. Can the farba Moshe werden asvara? So this is a svara in Moshe. Moshe could think as the Gabba Melechus HaMishkan is do akula in Shabbos. Melechus HaMishkan, there could be something lighter in Shabbos. Because the Mishkan is so important that Eibishter here told me to tell them everything, not like everything else. And that's what Rashi stresses. There would be a possibility to think that Shabbos is not so important when it comes to the Mishkan. And in order for it, he says, especially that there's a good reason for it too. Because to bring the kapora, to bring the forgiveness earlier. But before Benegei Yidden, we said they might completely make a mistake and forget and go into Shabbos. But Moshe, he won't be working on the Mishkan. But still, it might bring out some kula because of something that happened to him, something that David told him, I told you, take care of this. But Mele, he would think, it'll be light in your eyes to push away Shabbos because of the malach of the Mishkan. It'll be easy for him to push it away. So David is telling Moshe, it should not be light in your eyes. As is only in Shabbos, don't make any kulas in Shabbos. Doesn't mean that he will do malach on Shabbos. When crazy people ask him, he'll say, oh, you could be Mekel because Melachas is so important. So you should know the union of Shabbos stays as important as it is. So the Gabi Melech's Mishkan, it's very important. But for Moshe, that would have been a kula because he saw the Eibishter wanted him to, he himself should tell the Eden. Abizayis for enter the Pasha, the Shaila now. This answers simply the question we asked. Wie came from Ata Daber of Neisor Upland and the Minya from Yekab Benach? We asked before. Rashi said from the word Va'ata that you shall speak. We learn now that don't think that Shabbos shouldn't be light in your eyes. So we asked, how does the word you tell them teaches that? Now we understand. The Chonzog Meishan as Eich that Tzibuk from Shabbos that Zayin Va'ata Daber of Neisor by David telling you should speak to the Eden. Even for about Shabbos, Meisha allein soll das sagen alle in Bakhole. Meisha, the Eibusher told him two things. He told him to tell them about Mishkan, and that Meisha himself, but included also tell him about Shabbos yourself also. Oh, so Meisha, the Eibusher told him, you say also about Shabbos. Tell that to all the Yidden Bakhole when they got together. The same way I told you to tell the about the Mishkan, to tell them all together. As he did it, it says in the Pasha, what does it say? Vayakhel Moshe gathered them. Then it said Vayemer, and he told him, Sheish Yomim. Told him 6 days you work, and Shabbos you don't. So Moshe said the mitzvah of Shabbos also himself to all the Eden. Not like everything else where it went also the Eden were told from others. He's mutkish geworden to Moshe, that stresses to Moshe, a Shabbos is nit kal be'ezeh and shul Rabbi Melech's Mishkan. The Shabbos is not lighter. He didn't have to tell him, don't be machal Shabbos. But don't think it's lighter because I'm telling you to tell this. So that's what I'm telling you about Shabbos also to tell the Eden, the same strictness. Also, then Moshe will understand that Shabbos is not kal. This will also explain the Seder, the order of how it was said, the way it's in Parsha Kesiso and in this Parsha. Parsha Kesiso first was said the Mishkan, about the Mishkan, then was said about Shabbos, and here first was said about Shabbos, then said about the Mishkan. In Parsha Kesis was said wegen dem Tzivi Hashem Moshe. Parsha Kesis is talking about Hashem told Moshe, "Kumt frier the Tzivi of Melechas Mishkan and Nochas Shabbos." Comes first Mishkan and then Shabbos. Why? Well, the Ikir is though the Tzivi of Melechas Mishkan. The main thing here is not to tell them B'chal about Shabbos. They knew about Shabbos. Main thing is to tell them Melechas Mishkan. Now, Shabbos kum da B'leis al Stoffel. Here it's a secondary thing about Shabbos. As Melechas Mishkan is in the Deicha Shabbos, to tell you Mishkan is not Deicha Shabbos. The first state Melechas Mishkan first. So Melechas Mishkan said first, not for any reason to tell you, which is tells you first because that's the main subject, the main issue we're trying to say. So the main issue is Melechas Mishkan. That's why Shabbos is, by the way, that's why it says first Melechas Mishkan. It's not that because it's written Melechas Mishkan that Shabbos is written later because that teaches you that Shabbos is stronger than Melechas Mishkan. No, the reason Shabbos is later because the main thing it tells us what he's going to tell him. And then he says, by the way, you can't do Shabbos. That's when the Eibusher spoke to Moshe. I think in Huta said it was Retzach wegen dem Tzivu Moshe zu Bnei Yisrael, but in our Seder, when it's talking about Moshe speaking to the Yidden, but the Eibusher should not gesagt Pasha Sisa, so Moshe, the Eibusher told about the Moshe Pasha Sisa, as they darf man waren nicht nur dem Din am Melechas Shabbos in Teicha Shabbos, Melechas Malashim Amishkan in Teicha Shabbos. The Eibusher told him already, to the Yidden, you don't only have to tell that you should know that Melechas Mishkan is not Deicha Shabbos. Nor as Afa Pishatiu, your Dav Zayir Dufim is reason, even though you have to be very excited and involved completely in the Melechas Mishkan. So they sich hiten von nicht schul werden, was Shabbos shouldn't stumble and by mistake do not be careful in Melechas Shabbos. Und kedei das zu bewahren, to make sure of that, therefore magdim sein die Azara von Shabbos. Therefore, if he's trying to tell him not to forget, not to tell him the din, it's not. We said before that it's by writing which one first doesn't tell you which one is stronger. But why is he telling him here? Be careful that if you might be so involved, don't forget about Shabbos. Don't be nichshel. So if you're trying to tell him don't be nichshel, but the Akdomet Tutuf, so by writing Shabbos first tells you by Zeh steht allemal der Issa for Shabbos far Melechas Mishkan. If he tells them first about Shabbos, that's the first thing goes into their mind, and that's in their mind before Melechas Mishkan. Therefore, they will always remember and always be careful. Even when they're strict, completely involved in the Mishkan, they will remember that Hashem is not allowed to affect the Shabbos. That's the Shabbos to Hashem. So the bottom line is, it's not because it comes whatever is written first that it is. The Rashi here is trying to say something else in there, and it's a difference between Moshe Rabbeinu, Legabe him, or Legabe the Eden, and that answers all the kashas.